It is not often that I get to appear cool to my 14-year-old son. Today's one of those days. I got to play the EA Sports College Football 25 video game. I got to go down to Orlando to EA Sports last week. I got to play this game. Guys, you are in for a treat. It is spectacular. So let us talk all about this game, because I know all of you have different ways you want to play. All of you are excited about different aspects of this game. So I'm going to go over everything I learned and what I learned from about 3 or 4 hours playing the game. And we are going to get you ready for the drop in July of EA Sports College Football 25, because we've been waiting a long time for this game. We've been waiting 10 years for this game. This game went away. It took lawsuits. Well, a lawsuit made it go away, and then it took more lawsuits to get it back. It took the biggest NIL deal in history to get the players in the game. The real players are in this game. It looks amazing. It plays really well. It is not a Madden clone. I think a lot of you have asked me about that. A lot of you are worried about that. Is it going to play just like Madden? Is it going to feel just like Madden? There are obvious underlying similarities. They make Madden at the same place. The engines that power both games are very similar, and they share stuff. But the way they have created this game, the way they've designed it, the gameplay will feel very different, and it does, because I've played Madden and I played this one in pretty rapid succession, and it doesn't feel the same. So let's talk about what they did and what it looks like. So one of the biggest differences, I think, between the college football game and Madden is the college football game is intended to be a completely immersive experience. You are supposed to feel like you are at the stadium, feel like you're in the tunnel with the players, feel like you're in the stands watching the game, but also, obviously, you are playing the game. And the designers are really, I think they understand this, because the people who design the college football game, and a lot of these guys, for 10 years, they weren't making the game. So some of them worked for Madden. Some of them went to 2K and made other sports games. But they always loved this one the most. And it was a very much getting the band back together moment. So you talk to people like Ben Howmiller, who was a very important part of the old game and is now leading the team with the new game. This is a Florida State grad, loves his Seminoles, but loves college football in general. Like he listens to this show in podcast form. He listens to some of your other favorite college football podcasts pretty much every day. Like, this is his life. And you talk to him, and it just absolutely drips off of him how much this matters. Christian Brandt, who's the lead designer in this game, he's a Penn State grad. He had the Nittany Lion passing out bottles of bubbles at his wedding. So when he says, I got to make the Penn State student section look perfect, that S that you see when you are the opposing quarterback piloting your team toward the student section end zone, like, it has to look perfect. They have to play Zombie Nation after a big Penn State play, and they chant, "We are in Penn State," back and forth. That happens in the game. I'll give you one nugget from Christian Brandt before we start talking about gameplay. So there are 134 FBS teams. We can welcome Kennesaw State this year. They figured out exactly how every band gets into formation as the team takes the field. 134 bands. They are in exactly the formation they will be in real life. So if you are playing as Tennessee and you are coming out of the tunnel at Neyland Stadium, the band will be parted into the T. So you run through the vertical piece of the T until you get to the 90-degree angle, and then you take a hard left turn, go towards your sideline on the horizontal part of the T. All of that matters. Ralphie runs before Colorado games. Between the first and second quarter, if you play at Iowa, and I did this in the game. This actually happens in the game. They do the wave to the children's hospital. And I know some of you don't care about that. You just want to play the game. But I know a lot of you do care about that. You want the details to be perfect. And that's one thing that the designers of the game said over and over again. Every team in this game, all 134, every team is somebody's favorite. Every moment in that stadium matters to them. If you graduated from Texas, DKR has to look perfect. If you went to Texas A&M, Kyle Field has to look like Kyle Field. They did that. And one thing they did that I thought was really cool that is not something you see in Madden. So when you're playing these games, a lot of times you're not watching replays. What's going on between plays, you're not really watching. But in this game, there's a picture-in-picture as you're selecting your next play where you see the things that are happening around the game. So you'll see the crowd shots like you'd see in a college football game. Like if the home team has a horrible play that goes terribly wrong, you will see some fan doing a surrender cobra in the stands. If your team gets a turnover, let's say you're playing as Oregon State and you intercept a pass, you will see in that picture-in-picture window as you're selecting your first offensive play for the next drive, you will see the turnover chainsaw. It's coming. It's in that game. So the immersive experience was really important to them. And it's interesting because you can tell talking to the folks who design the playbooks, they're much more worried about the mechanics of how the read option works. But the people who did the design, like they hired stunt people and crafted a custom-made 2-story ramp at the motion capture studio in Vancouver to simulate Clemson players coming down the hill at Memorial Stadium. So you touch the rock, you run down the hill, and remember there's like there's a flat part of the hill that they're always jumping off of. And so they hired stunt people to make that look perfect. It's incredible, the attention to detail. It's one of those things that I think they probably needed the amount of lead time they had. Because remember, they announced this game was coming back about 2 years ago. And so they needed that lead time to get these details perfect. They went to several stadiums. If they were close enough to a stadium, they went. They basically mapped those stadiums out. The stadiums they couldn't get to, they contacted the schools. 80 schools sent photos in of their stadiums. They averaged 1,000 photos per school to render these stadiums. So they went through 80,000 photos to get these 80 stadiums exactly perfect. There's 134 stadiums in the game. There are no generics. 134 home stadiums. There are also neutral site stadiums. So when you play in the bowl games, you're going to play in an actual rendering of that stadium. There's a few they didn't get, like the Florida State Georgia Tech game that's in Dublin. They don't have the rights to the soccer stadium in Dublin. It's actually pretty expensive. Northwestern, and they asked the schools how this is going to work. So for Northwestern this year, remember Northwestern's not playing at Ryan Field this year. They're going to modify the soccer stadium on campus and also play 2 games at Wrigley Field. So they don't have the rights to Wrigley Field. So basically they said, look, just have us play at Ryan Field. But Vanderbilt, for example, they're in the midst of a big stadium renovation. They said, don't put old Vanderbilt Stadium in the game. Put what it's going to look like when we're done in the game. So they've built that off the models of what that stadium will look like when it is fully open for business in 2025. All of this stuff matters. All of these details matter. But I know there's a bunch of you that only want to talk about the gameplay. So when we come back, that's what we're talking about. I am wearing my Roback Performance Polo right now. Performance hoodies, polos, joggers, shorts, the most comfortable gear known to man. I love Roback. I'm wearing it constantly. When I flew up here, sometimes it gets a little chilly on the plane, Roback hoodie. It's perfect. It's always perfect. RHOBACK.com. Use the code Andy for 20% off your first purchase. Roback is I'm not going to say I think it's my favorite sponsor right now. And I realize every sponsor is your favorite sponsor. Right? No. That dog, it's on me a lot. I got that dog on me. Some people got that dog in me. I got that dog on me. All right, let us get down to the nitty gritty. What does this game play like? What does it feel like when you're playing the college football game? It is not a Madden clone. I will tell you that right now. So I have been playing Madden a lot over the last few years. My kid is big into Madden. So every year he gets that game on his birthday. He smokes me at it. But I've obviously been keeping up with that and the gameplay and how the controller's laid out, how it works on a PS5. It does not feel like Madden when you're playing, and here's why. One thing the designers said, and I think this is an important distinction to make, and it's really an important distinction between actual college football and the NFL. The difference between the best and worst player in a college football game is so much bigger than the difference between the best and worst player in an NFL game. And so you notice in Madden, the matchups are usually pretty even. Even when you have a superstar player, that person can't really dominate the person they're playing against. In college football, you absolutely can have domination in a matchup, and it will test you. Like when you're playing against your friends, if you are significantly better than your friend, you can pick a team that probably has no business playing its real life counterpart that it's playing, but you can test your skills that way. I noticed that Notre Dame fans will be very happy. Charles Jagasaw, the new starting left tackle, they gave him a very, very nice rating, and ratings will matter because ratings do determine who wins those individual matchups in the game. Pro Football Focus helped with the data for those ratings. So how you feel about Pro Football Focus will color how you feel about the ratings, I'm sure. But they tried to be true to the rating when the game is actually being played. Because remember, so when you're a left tackle, let's say you're controlling the quarterback or the running back, whoever has the ball, the CPU is controlling the left tackle. When that left tackle engages with the defensive end, there's a bunch of decisions that are going on within the game, kind of dice rolls based on traits of the player, based on ratings of the two players that decide who wins that individual matchup. And we'll get to the individual matchups on line of scrimmage because I think that's important too. That's a big difference in the feel of this gameplay. But it's still you're kind of got the view from the top behind the offense. You're looking at that. Very similar to the old game, very similar to Madden. The playbooks are much more diverse. They wanted to make sure you can run these. So there are air raid playbooks for air raid teams. They're working on the go-go at UNLV. There's a lot of two-back stuff at UNLV if you want to do that. So a lot of two-back stuff at Liberty. I played as both those teams. The option game is a lot of fun with those teams. But they've also changed the throw game a little bit. You have now a power meter when you're throwing the ball. Very similar to when you kick the ball in the old game. And basically, how long you hold the button, you'll be able to see how hard you're going to throw the ball. And you kind of need to layer the passing game a little bit, especially as the difficulty level of the game goes up, or if you're playing a team that is, in terms of rating, much better than your team. You need to be able to throw it with some touch to go over the top of the defense. Or if you have a guy who's wide open, you need to be able to laser beam it in there. Now, instead of just saying, I'm going to press this button hard to throw the laser beam, you can see exactly how hard you're going to throw it because that meter's there for you. And obviously the meter changes based on your quarterback's attributes, also based on where you play. Home field advantage is much different in this game than it is in Madden. Madden, it's kind of negligible. In this game, it is a massive, massive difference, which if you played the old game. They brought that back. And look, when you look at your route tree, when you look at the routes that your receivers are supposed to run, when you are in a hostile environment, like if you're playing at Penn State, if you're playing at the Swamp, and you're the visiting offense, when you check to see what those matchups look like, your route lines are going to be all squiggly. And in fact, sometimes you're going to have a question mark over different guys where it's not even to tell you what button that person is. Now, if you have a good memory, you'll know what button that person's supposed to be, but you get in the heat of the moment, you might forget. And that's the point. They want you to feel the pressure that an opposing quarterback would feel when they are playing in those stadiums. They want you to be distracted. But also, even when you call audibles in those stadiums, there are going to be times when certain of your players don't hear it and run the wrong play like they do in real life. So you need to be ready for that. Couple mechanical changes in the game. One that I love, and I think some of you are going to hate this, and I think some of you are going to love this, but I like it because I think it is more true to the real life version of this. they've changed the read option. So when you run a read option in the old game, the default would have been the quarterback keeps it. And if you want to hand off to the running back, you have to kind of press X very quick. So you press X to snap, and then very quickly would press X to hand off. That's not how it works now. Now the default is a handoff, and you press X if you want to pull it and keep as the quarterback, which is more realistic in real life, because in real life, the quarterback keep is the less likely option to happen. But if that defensive end crashes on the back, of course you keep it as the quarterback. It'll actually allow you to read the unblocked defender better. I feel like you have a little more time to read that defender and decide, okay, I'm going to hit X, I'm going to pull and keep. And that's what, when I was playing as UNLV, when I was playing as Liberty, I ran a lot of option, and I felt like I had more control over that. They've also changed the pitch on the option, where based on the depth of your button press, you can pitch softer, pitch harder, and obviously the harder you pitch it, the more chances of maybe something bad happening. But also, if you got a defender kind of streaking through there, you might be able to get it past him to the pitch man. So the option is a lot of fun. The running game, I feel like, is a lot easier than in the old game. Not necessarily easier, but just more realistic. And you can actually have, instead of running into the line of scrimmage, gaining a yard or two, or breaking a massive run, like there are those mid-level runs. Like you can have 5 and 6 yard carries pretty regularly. So if you play as an offense that is a run-heavy offense, you can play a realistic game with that offense. And it actually, because I feel like in the old game and in Madden, we all love to throw the ball. A lot of us will just default to throwing the ball. But a lot of the times I felt like it was because the run game was not that realistic. This run game feels a lot more realistic, where I feel like I can gain 6 yards on first down. That is going to cause me to think more about running the ball so I can get in good down and distance situations. And this game punishes you if you get in bad down and distance situations, just like in real life. You know, I felt like in the older games, you could kind of just bail yourself out. Even if they're in 3rd and long, you could always dial up something that's deep down the field, and you'd be able to get out of it. This game will punish you, especially if you're on the road, if you get in a bad down and distance. So you can run and stay ahead of the chain. So here's why running in the new game, I think, from talking to the folks who made it, feels different. For years and years, in the college football game and in Madden, the way they handled blocking and the way they handled how the D-line interacts with the offensive line and the linebackers interact with the offensive line was that they did it in kind of blocks. So if you ever played actual football, remember at practice, you do half line drills. So you'd have, say, a guard, tackle, and tight end working against a defensive end and a couple of linebackers, or you'd have center guard, tackle working against a defensive tackle, a defensive end, and a linebacker. That's kind of how the blocking schemes worked in the old game, just because computing power, also because, you know, the platforms didn't allow for you to do anything as advanced as what they do now. Like the PlayStation 5, the newest Xbox, you have more computing power now. You can do more things. They can handle more calculations in real time. So before, you'd have like 3 linemen kind of grouped together, and they'd be grouped with 3 defenders, and they kind of all move as one, and the variables would affect the whole block of players, that whole block of 6 players. Now it's much more individual matchups, where that defensive end and that offensive tackle will be matched up. The decision engine will be making decisions for that matchup. Then it will be making decisions for the guard versus the linebacker. And I think that makes for a much more realistic running game. When you have the ball as the back, or let's say you've kept as the quarterback, you can see individual blocks set up, and it makes it much easier to figure out, okay, I've got to cut here, I need to juke here, I need to try to spin here. It really makes that easier. And I will say, the tackling in this game requires a lot more effort from the player than the old game did. The old game, you could kind of rely on the CPU to get the guy down. You need to get to your guy and you need to tackle him and make sure you lay a good hit on him, or you're probably going to get a back who glances off a CPU tackler and gains some more yards. Like they've made it where the gamer really needs to be involved in the tackle. And I think that's a difference that it's probably something that they've wanted to do for a long time. This is another thing that they've worked on that I think really does add more realism to the game, because it's easier to break a tackle, and also the type of tackle that you choose will depend on the situation, where you are in the field. You can hit stick somebody out of bounds. If you want to hit stick somebody in the middle of the field, there's a really good chance that you are going to have that tackle get broken, or you miss that tackle and all of a sudden they're off to the races. So it's more in depth in terms of what you've got to do as the tackler. Speaking of more in depth, you O-line nerds are going to love this one. You can change protections at the line of scrimmage now. So you bring up the audible menu, and you'll have your play. Like you can if you want to go to Y stick, you can hit the triangle button. If you want to run inside zone, you can hit the square button. And obviously you can set your audibles to be what you want. You can change protections now where you can slide. You can do a full slide. You can do a half slide. You can, if you see somebody that you think is coming, if you think they're sitting in the house, you can max protect. Now you may make a mistake. You may slide the wrong direction and get your quarterback sacked. But if you think that they're bringing pressure from one side, you slide to that side, and the hot receiver's over there, you're probably going to score a touchdown. So it is something that, if you've actually played football, that's a piece that was missing from this game. It's no longer missing. All right. We've talked about the actual play now gameplay, but I know there's others of you that are more interested in other modes. So let's talk about Dynasty Mode. Dynasty Mode is the one where you are the coach. You get to build the program. And this is the one that incorporates most of the changes in college football. Now, are you meeting with players about their NIL deals, or do you have guys hitting you up for bigger NIL deal? No, not yet. And it was interesting the way they talked. It's not because it was some sort of taboo thing. Remember, the NCAA name is not even on this game anymore. So that's not the reason for it. Ben Howmiller said it best when he was giving his presentation. He said, it changes so often, it may have actually changed while I was talking to you. And in fact, it did change while he was talking to us last week. The Fontenot versus the NCAA case in Colorado, everybody thought it was going to get moved to the Northern District of California and settled with the House case. And the judge decided to keep it in Colorado, so that thing goes forward. That happened while Ben was talking to us. So yes, all of those things do change in real time. And their thought was, okay, we've got a game that's got to last a year here. So let us incorporate brand building. And that's really what stands in for NIL from the coach perspective. There's the road to glory mode, which where you're the actual player. There's a lot more thought to your NIL deals and that sort of thing. You're thinking about that differently. The coach, you do have to think about that from a team perspective. Like, do you have, the brand, which I think kind of stands in for, do you have the NIL war chest to get the kind of players you want? The transfer portal is where you're really going to have to work in the offseason and decide what you want to do. And it mimics the real life decision that coaches have to make about how much do I devote resources to recruiting high school players? How much do I devote resources to getting guys out of the transfer portal? Some of the screen grabs they were showing us in the presentation, like you have guys that go into transfer, and this is one where it gets a little bit weird because you have real players in the game. So for those first couple of years of the Dynasty Mode, you're going to be seeing players who are actually playing college football right now. And then, of course, they get filled in the future by guys who haven't come yet. Who knows? Maybe we'll get the Elite Series to strike a deal with EA going forward so that we can have actual 5 stars from the next class in the game going forward. But it, like, Drew Aller showed up at the transfer portal after the season in one of the screen grabs we saw. Now, of course, Penn State fans know that's probably not going to happen in real life, but it is the sort of thing that in the world of the game, and look, no, I think after the last day of the season, the idea that Kyle McCord from Ohio State would hop into the transfer portal that following Monday seemed a little crazy, but that's exactly what happened. So you've got to think about that. You might lose your starting quarterback to the transfer portal, or you might be able to get an upgrade out of the transfer portal, and you have to decide what resources you're going to devote to that. You have to decide how you're going to manage your career. Do you want to hire or fire coordinators? Do you want to stay at your school? Do you want to accept a job offer at a new school? And that's another thing that I thought was interesting talking to the folks who make the game, because Ben had asked me a question when we were talking about what did I think was going to happen going forward now that the Big Ten and the SEC have kind of separated into the Power Two. He said, do you think rather than Group of Five coaches kind of moving up or down through different Group of Five head coaching jobs, would they rather be an SEC or Big Ten coordinator? Does that make them closer to an SEC or Big Ten head coaching job? And I said, I think more than likely you'll see good good Group of Five head coaches take those coordinator jobs now instead of, say, a better Group of Five head coaching job, because it does put them closer to those jobs. So that probably gets worked into the decision engine, and not necessarily maybe for the coach that you are playing, but in terms of the other jobs that open. Like I'm probably going to do Dynasty Mode as Louisiana Monroe. I said when General Booty entered the transfer portal, wherever he wound up, that's my Dynasty Mode team. So General Booty's going to Louisiana Monroe. So that's the one I think I'm going to try in Dynasty Mode first. If I'm successful there, the path for me, you would think, would be take another Group of Five job and then eventually take an SEC or a Big 12 job. But maybe not. We'll see. Or the jobs that open, like that better Group of Five job, I may decide to take that, and it may have opened because the head coach became the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss. Like that's how this is going to work now. The decisions are going to kind of mimic real life, and that's where they've worked really hard. That's where they listen to all these podcasts, trying to make sure they know how the sport works and give you the most accurate experience. But I'm very excited about Dynasty Mode. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think you're going to feel a lot of the same pressures that your favorite team's actual coaches feel. Let's talk about Road to Glory Mode. This is the one that you're the player and you get to make decisions based on that player. So you go through that player's college career and you basically take him through his career. It could be 3 years, it could be 5 years. And at the end, hopefully you're off to the NFL draft. But the decisions you have to make mimic the decisions that we're at the Elite Series here for On3 right now. So we've got 5-star recruits that are learning about what life is going to be like as college football stars. The decisions they're going to have to make, same decisions you're going to have to make in Road to Glory. And you're going to have to decide how you spend your time in the offseason. And it's not just, do I party? Do I work out? It's, do I work out? Do I party? Do I try to build my brand to get better NIL deals? Do I study the playbook? Do I study my actual books? Because yes, you can be academically ineligible in this game. And if you get academically ineligible, you're screwed. So you have to be very careful. Like there is a mode, like it'll tell you, you've got a test coming up in 2 weeks in this class. You are clueless about this subject. It doesn't mean you're an idiot and you're going to fail no matter what. It means until you study, you're clueless. And you have to decide to study for this test. Well, does that mean you don't devote as much time to your brand building, which may cost you NIL deals in the long run? So, yeah, these are the real decisions that have to be made if you are a college football star. So that part of the game is going to be a lot of fun. And it doesn't, the thing about this game is it's very interesting because there are some of you who are going to want to just play as every team, to see every stadium, to see all the traditions they've put in the game. They say there's a ton of Easter eggs, but basically if there are a group, chants that your team's crowd does, like they're in there. I mentioned the We Are Penn State, the da 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 da, go Gators, that's in there. The war chant is in there. Like when you are playing a game at Doe Campbell Stadium, that game starts with the war chant, with the whole crowd doing the chop, with Osceola on Renegade planting the flaming spear in the field. That's all there. I know a lot of you are good, just want to go from stadium to stadium to see that. And the way this game is set up, that's going to take you a long time because you're just going to be fascinated by all of the little details that they put in the game. If you're just like we talked to Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter's on the cover of this game, Colorado cornerback / receiver. And I asked him, what'd you think of the Ralphie run? And he's like, I just smashed the X button to get to the game. For you, it's going to be about being able to slide your protection. It's going to be about being able to see those individual blocks setting up. You're going to be more excited about that. You Dynasty Mode folks, I know there's a bunch of you out there. I know the folks who watch my show, that's what they're excited about. You want to be the coach. I am fascinated to see what recruiting feels like, what the transfer portal versus the high school part feels like, because that's been one of the most interesting things to follow as someone who covers the actual sport. And now you get to make those decisions. And I think it'll help you kind of understand where your team's at, because you'll have had to make some of those decisions yourselves. And then, of course, Road to Glory, where you get to be that person, because there's a lot of people who always wanted to be the big college football star. Unfortunately, some of us too small, too slow. Now you can be that person. It's a lot of fun. The game drops in July. July 19th is the official release date. You can play 3 days early if you get the deluxe edition or if you get the one that's bundled with Madden. There's a lot to unpack in this game. There's a lot more to talk about. Obviously, EA Sports can be releasing more between now and when the game drops. But I hope this has helped you get a little bit early intel, a little bit of early info that helps you decide how you're going to play, what you want to do. I'm more excited about it after getting to see it. And I realize, look, I know what you're saying. That EA Sports didn't pay you for this ad. Why are you doing essentially a 20-minute advertisement for EA Sports? Because this game is something that all of us who love college football have been waiting for. Having met the people who make the game, they love it as much as we love it. It shows in the game. Like, they made a masterpiece here. So that's why. If it sucked, I'd tell you it sucked. It does not suck. This game is spectacular. I can't wait for y'all to play it. Join me on the show on Thursday. We'll be talking more about the game. I'll be taking questions live about the game in the chat. This is going to be a lot of fun as we all get to discover this thing together. Because I'm telling you right now, listen, I got a 14-year-old kid who is dying to play this game. I'm dying to have it in a console at my house. I've been waiting 10 years for this. I've been waiting longer because life got in the way for me. I was a huge fan of the game going back to Bill Walsh college football for my Sega Genesis. And then when NCAA football came out on the PlayStation, I played it in college. I played it after college. And then when we had kids, 2009, I just didn't have time to play anymore. So I missed basically the last 4 years of the game. And so it's been longer for me to not really have a chance to play this game. And now I get to share it with my own son. Come on. Doesn't get any better than that. So if you're new, we do a show about college football every day here at the On3 Sports YouTube channel. So subscribe to this channel. We love this game as much as you do. Every day, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern time, we're talking college football. We'll obviously be talking about the game quite a bit as the summer goes on. When we get our hands on a copy of it in July, we'll be talking about it a ton. But I cannot wait for you guys to see this. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples On 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.